Alright, in this Defeating Adventism video, it's going to be on the Allah of Islam and the God of Christianity, and how Adventists, we're going to look at two well-known teachers, completely get this wrong. I fear again, I only say fear, that this is going to be a longer video, because I know in our current society and culture, because if we can't do something in a TikTok video, you know, for 60 seconds or 120 seconds, people aren't going to listen to it. Okay, but I'm going to get this on record, even though it's probably going to be a little long. So the question really to ask, is the Allah of Islam the same God of Christianity? We're going to look at two well-known celebrity Adventists, and I hate to use the word teachers, because they're such horrible teachers. We've already looked at John Carter before in previous videos. We can already see that he doesn't know how to read and interpret the Bible. We're going to look at a new teacher we haven't looked at before, a guy named Dwight Nelson. Both of these are prominent pastors, have had their messages, TV shows, or etc. on the Hope Channel, the Three Angels Broadcasting Network, etc. So we are going to start with number one, which is going to be Dwight Nelson. Yeah, but before we do, let me show you some of the books you're going to see. You are going to see the English translation of the Quran by Drs. Muhammad Mushakand and Drs. Halali. We are going to look at a volume. This is of a 9-volume set of the Sahih al-Bukhari Hadiths of Islam. We're also going to look at Dwight Nelson's book called The Chosen. We are going to look at a quote by Martin Luther. It's a fantastic quote. This is volume 2 of a 3-volume set on what Luther says. You're not going to see this book quoted, though I may quote its concept if I don't forget. It's called Islam and Dehemitude. A dhimmi is another word often used within Islam. We got another volume of Sahih al-Bukhari. This is volume 5 of the Hadith set. And lastly, I am going to reference, I'm not going to show it, but I'm going to reference research that I did in the SDA commentary on the word God in that book. So you are going to see, the ones that I told you that you're going to see photographed are indeed photographed and visible, and it's the very books that you see. So we're going to start with Dwight Nelson. 38 years a pastor, right? Senior pastor, Andrews University, Pioneer Memorial Church. He's done some television programming in the late 90s, New Perceptions, The Next Millennium, Net 98. So in other words, my point is, I'm just not pulling some unknown Adventist pastor laboring in the trenches in, you know, Dirtwater Town, America. No, this is Dwight Nelson at Andrews University, Pioneer Memorial Church. Been a pastor for 38 years, etc. We're going to look at a sermon that he did, December of 2006, called Star Rising Over Islam. Broadcast December 11th, 2010 on the Three Angels Network message. I think a quite controversial sermon. So let's watch the first of 2 clips by Dwight Nelson.
And that instead of alienating the children of the East with our anti-Islamic rhetoric, we ought to be at the forefront of a movement that seeks to share with them the light that shines upon both of our communities of faith. I recently listened to a series of CDs, lectures given by the late Dr. Robert Darnell, a member of our community of faith, an expert in Islamic studies, an anthropologist, in which he carefully chronicled how, in fact, the Quran teaches the seeds of every divine truth that you and I embrace. The seeds are all there. It was Darnell's lifetime mission and conviction to cultivate those seeds in dialogue with the children of the East. And in an hour of history, when the West is turning against those children, ought we not to be the first to raise up our voices in their behalf?
All right, did you hear what he said? Islamic rhetoric and the seeds of divine truth that are in Islam, seeds of divine truth. You know, I hear this all the time. This Islamic rhetoric comment, that is. And it typically means anybody who teaches against Islam or exposes Islam as a false religion. not to do that. Well, you know what? Here I'm going to do it. I'm going to help. I'm going to help Dwight Nelson out. The Quran is a false book. Muhammad is a false teacher. Islam is a false religion. So, don't we expose false teachings? He's trying to cozy up to them. We should be exposing them. Well, you know what? I'm in good company here in this case because I'm going to show you a quote here in this book by Martin Luther. Let's look at his book now. We're going to look at what Luther says. This is volume 2, copyright 1959. We are going to look on, you can see this page here. We're going to look at 2 sections of it in red. Let's look at the first, pages 960, 961. Let's look at page 961. What does Luther say of the Quran? When that Mohammedan monstrosity, that's maybe Islamic rhetoric, right? The Quran is at its best. It is nothing but a sausage stuffed with sentences mixed together in confusion from the law and the gospel. For both the Jewish and Mohammedan fanatics have picked from the scripture whatever served their institutions and the flesh. We're going to look at the next quote here from Martin Luther. This quote came as Europe was putting together in 1543 a Latin translation of the Quran. So here's what Martin Luther has to say about that Latin translation of the Quran. I am convinced that nothing more irksome and harmful could be done to Muhammad or the Turks, more than with weapons, than the publication among Christians of the Quran. By reading it, Christians may see what an utterly accursed, shameful, wretched book that it is, full of lies, fables, and abominations. Therefore, my kind and Christian petition to you, my gracious and dear sirs, is, be pleased to allow this book freely to circulate without hindrance for the glory of Christ, for the good of Christians, to the harms of the Turks and disgust of the devil. Apparently, Martin Luther didn't get Dwight Nelson's message in Islamic rhetoric. Martin Luther, I think, accurately described the Quran. It's an utterly wretched book, and it is. And we're going to look at it. So did you also hear what he said too? He equated Christianity and Islam when he said, it's the light that shines on both our communities of faith. And then he quotes a Robert Darnell, Islamic expert. There is no light that shines on both of our faiths. Islam has no light. So let me just say, I'm an Islamic expert, too. And something I don't normally share in my videos is I have a master's degree in humanities, emphasis in philosophy and religion. I did my master's thesis on English translations of the Quran. I have a larger English translation of the Quran library than the Library of Congress in the United States. You can go back on some of my videos. You can see where I've done a couple videos where I've actually showed my whole Quranic translation library. I did it for some apologists, some Christian apologists actually in Malaysia is where we were doing this at. I'm going to show you here, what you'll see here, and you'll probably hardly ever see anywhere. These are the first 4 English translations of the Quran. This is the first one done in English in 1649 by Alexander Ross. But these are the first 4 English translations of the Quran. You know what's unique about the first 255 years of Quranic translation? It's this. Those Qurans that you see here were published by Christians, for Christians, to do exactly what Martin Luther said, expose Islam. Now, in 1905, we have our first Quranic translation done by a Muslim into English, and for different reasons. But for the first 255 years of Quranic translation, it was done to, as Martin Luther said, expose this wretched book that it is. So, let's look at this. He said, we're going to look at some of this light in the Quran that Dwight Nelson talked about, and how it teaches every seed of truth. Look with me here. Let's look at the light in the Quran. You're going to see here this Quran, which I like to use, is done by a Salafi Muslims. And if you want to question me on some of this other language later, I'm not going to pause and take time necessary to define all my terms, otherwise the video is going to be too long. This is a Salafi translation. Dr. Muhammad Mushrikhan and Dr. Halali, who also did the hadith that you're going to see, the hadith of Sahih al-Bukhari. So there's their noble Quran. You can look at the title page. It's done under the authority of Saudi Arabia, Mecca. These guys are professors at the University of Medina, which is the city that Muhammad actually fled to when he left Mecca. So let's start looking at Surah chapter 4, verse 171, and you can see what's underlined. The Messiah, Jesus, son of Mary, was no more than a messenger. Okay, the seeds of divine truth is to do what first? We're going to deny the deity of Christ. Let's go on, look at the next set of red lines. Say not three, Trinity, cease, it is better for you, for Allah is only one. In this one verse we have deny the deity of Christ, deny the triune God. So is that the seeds of divine truth in the Quran that Dwight Nelson is talking about? Well, you know what? It may be if he's talking about the God that James White had, who was very similar to the God of Islam in that sense. But anyway, we are going to look at Surah 4, 157. Read with me here the underlying words. But they killed him not, nor crucified him. So now we're going to deny the crucifixion. But what happened? It says, but the resemblance of Jesus was put over someone, I said another man, and they killed that man. So Islam denies the crucifixion. Here's another one I think is actually funny. So Dwight Nelson wants to say the seeds of every divine truth. Oh, so when did Seventh-day Adventists start accepting the doctrine of hell? Let's look at the Quran here in Surah 19, 71 and 72. It says, there's not one of you but will pass over it. This is called the Sirat verses, by the way, S-I-R-A-T. I don't think, no, it's not on screen in front of you, but that's what they're called, believe me. Sirat is the bridge. Every Muslim is going to have to cross this bridge over hell. And that's what these two verses are telling you. Some will make it, some won't. And you can read verse 72, the polytheists and wrongdoers, they're the ones that are going to go to hell and reside in it forever. So, Dwight Nelson, do you want to say the seeds of divine truth are hell? It seems like Adventists seem to have missed that. Okay. Let's watch a second clip by Dwight Nelson.
For what if? And by the way, the story of Christmas would hardly let us do otherwise, would it? What if the Spirit, the mighty Spirit of Allah, by the way, I got some letters from viewers after that last teaching, and one viewer said, don't you know that the name Allah is a name for Lucifer? Oh, I hope you never embrace that. Allah, listen carefully now, Allah is closer to Elohim, the Hebrew name for God, than is our English word God. In fact, hold on to your seats. The English name God is a Nordic pagan god. We've taken a pagan god's name and we said, that's the name of our God. And we all call him God. That's a pagan. It's a Nordic pagan myth. So don't you ever get pushed into the corner where you're saying, Allah is a demonic name. Allah is the name of the living God. Allah is the creator of the universe. Allah is the God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Ishmael, Jethro, Job, and even Balaam.
All right, so you heard what he said? The mighty Spirit of Allah. Okay, let's look at this mighty Spirit of Allah as expressed in Allah's book. We're going to go to Surah 3, 54. I love using this one, by the way, when I go to mosque, and I go to mosque and witness to Muslims. And this says, what in the Arabic, well actually let's just read the English. And they, disbelievers, plotted to kill Jesus, and Allah planned to, and Allah is the best of planners. See the word planners there in English? It's the word makarin in Arabic, which means deceiver. A true rendering of that word in Arabic is Allah is the best of all deceivers. So the Allah of the Quran is a deceiver. I then will take you to Surah 7 verse 99, and we can ask, well, who does Allah deceive? Read verse 99 with me. Did they feel secure against the plan of Allah? None feel secure. In other words, none are safe from the plan of Allah except those who are lost. In other words, you can only be deceived by Allah if you believe in Allah. By the way, Christians, if you want to witness to Muslims, remember those two verses. I use these all the time at a mosque. Because I say, yeah, your Allah is the greatest of all. Makarim, that's an Arabic word for deceivers. Your Allah is a deceiver. My God is not a deceiver. And you know what? I am free from the deception of your Allah, because 799 says Allah only deceives those that are his own. You are being deceived. But yet Dwight Nelson says the seeds of divine truth are in Islam. I mean, this is Islam's holy book. Just an ignorant man. Now we're going to look at Surah 434. Let's look at some more of these seeds of divine truth. Allah is the God of Abraham. Oh, okay. Let's look at this. Surah 434. This is the treatment of women. And you can see what I have underlined here. If a woman misbehaves, admonish them. Then refuse to share their bed. And lastly, beat them. And all the words you see in parentheses are not in the Arabic. In the Arabic, the word for beat is the same word used in the Quran and Hadith to beat camels. So, seeds of divine truth. Allah is the God of Abraham. You want to make Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob wife beaters? Or, progression of punishment? Admonish them. Don't share their bed with them. Beat them. That's the Allah of the Quran, and apparently the Allah of Dwight Nelson. Then he goes on to talk about how one viewer, right, used the name Allah as the name of the devil, and don't ever do that, etc. Look, I've been at many mosques, and I've talked to hundreds of Muslims. They know the difference. They know the Allah that they worship is not the Allah of Christianity, God, if you want to go down that route. They know it. So here's something that I did. I got the SDA commentary and looked up the word God. And because Dwight Nelson says what? That we worship what? Since the Nordic pagan God? It's not even in your SDA commentary. I don't know where he's coming from. He is off script here. Well, let me just say he's outside of Seventh-day Adventism. Because in your official teachings, in your commentary, I don't see it. Now, maybe it's there. I have not read every word of every book that Seventh-day Adventists have to offer. But if you have, and you want to support Mr. Nelson, you're welcome to show me that. I don't see it. He's off script. I would then say to Dwayne Nelson, really? You want to say Elohim, God, in the Hebrew, is a pagan Nordic God? You, sir, are blasphemous, and you really need to quit. The Allah who brings about, the Allah that he seems to like, the greatest deceiver, the one that beats women. Here's another verse. I'm not even going to put this verse on screen. If you got a Quran, go read chapter 2, verse 223. Chapter 2, verse 223. And look how a Muslim man can approach his wife. I mean, women are just property in Islam. And you can read in 2:223. It's a little sexual, let me say, so I didn't put it on screen. Go ahead and read it. Yeah, and that is, again, the seeds of divine truth. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is the Allah of Islam. This man is teaching absurdity. Well, Dwight Nelson has a book. It's called The Chosen. I'm holding it up here, copyrighted in 2011, still for sale 10 years later on the Adventist Book Center website, which you can see here on screen right now. There's my search results. I did it on August 4th. Still for sale. Here's the cover, copyright 2011. I actually got a signed copy. Too bad he didn't sign it for me. I bought the book used, but he signed the book. We are going to look at page 301 and 302, see what it says, Star Rising Over Islam. That's his sermon that he preached from. Look with me here, page 301, text in red. We got an Islamic nation of Malaysia, their first astronaut. And so what's the big concern? Well, if you're a Muslim, you got to pray. You got to pray towards Mecca. Where's Mecca when you are, hundreds of miles above the earth, and he's talking about this great story and how they figured that out. But he goes on to explain Islam. Look at the underlined text. Like Judaism and Christianity, Islam is classified as an Abrahamic monotheistic religion. No, it's not. It is not a true religion of the Jews and the Christians. They have a different God. They actually got the same God that James White, J.N. Andrews, and Joseph Bates had, where they, Jesus is a created being, he's just a messenger, etc. That's really the God of early Adventism, but it's surely not the God of Christianity. Read with me down here on the last paragraph. When he talks about Muhammad, it says his message of monotheism met strong resistance. Well, it really wasn't a message of monotheism. It's actually a Unitarian type God, if we want to do it theologically. That's who the God of Islam is. It's a false God. It's a Unitarian God. And then he says that his forces, that he retook Mecca. No, I'm sorry, Mr. Nelson. He didn't retake Mecca. He never took Mecca. He fled from Mecca to Medina, and then when he got power in his religious followers, he basically marched into Mecca and took it without, we'll say, firing a shot. And then he talks about his visions are codified in the Quran. But lastly, read this last sentence. Could it be that into the darkness of paganism, God ignited a faint light of truth? No, he didn't. There is no truth in the Quran. The Quran is a false book. Muhammad is a false teacher. Islam is a false religion. Something that Dwight Nelson needs to learn how to say. Let's look here on page 302 of his book. He goes into the story of Hagar, and then on the very bottom, you can see what? Did God intentionally plant the seeds of divine truth, destiny, in the story of the birth of Ishmael and the Arab people? Well, let's go down to the last part of it here. And it says, the God of Abraham, who longed to rekindle his light and faith among the children of Ishmael, raised up the earthen voice of Muhammad to call his wayward children back to the Creator God. This man clearly believes the God of Islam, the one who denies the deity of Christ, who says you can beat your wife, the one who denies the crucifixion, the one who is the biggest deceiver of all time, is the God of Christianity. I have nothing else to say about Dwight Nelson, but he is just a fool and does not understand. Or maybe he does understand what he's saying. I don't know. Can't read his heart, but I can sure understand what he's saying in his videos. All right, with the end of Dwight Nelson, we're going to go to John Carter. He's been in ministry, he says on his website, almost 50 years. He likes to brag about how big his audiences are that he attracts. 20,000 were in attendance at the Sydney Opera House at one point for him. He's attracted more than 100,000 have attended his speakings in. He likes to brag about all his travels around communist nations, or either former communist satellite nations in Ukraine, at the capital of Ukraine, where he had more than 100,000 in attendance. He talks about drawing large audiences in Russia and India, etc. We're going to look at a clip of a video by his called Lecture 5, The Greatest Archaeological Discovery of All Time, November 2010. Let's watch that clip.
Allah, God, the undisputed and incontestable Lord of the heavens and the earth, and all that is found between and beyond it, bless you and your family with the best of this world and the hereafter, for your advocacy of reconciliation among mankind and their respective religions. That's nice, isn't it? It's a beautiful prayer. Thank you. Now, you know, Allah is the same God that the Christian worships, I believe. In the Bible that is used by people who speak in those Middle Eastern countries, the word for God is Allah. And so obviously the person who is sending me this letter is a person who follows Islam.
So what does he say? Much the same as false teacher Dwight Nelson. What? Allah is the same God the Christians worship. You know, I've done this before. I actually had some Muslims say that. Oh, we worship the same God. I go, oh, really? Then bow your head in prayer with me to the triune God of Christianity, they will stop in their tracks, and I've done this many times in front of mosques. Now, like I said, most Muslims at mosque know we worship different gods. Just because we use the word God doesn't mean we worship the same God. Just because they use the word Jesus doesn't mean we have the same Jesus, because we clearly don't, as you've already seen in the Quran. So what we got on display here in this clip is just a pastor with a gross ignorance, misunderstanding of not only Christianity, but of Islam. You've already seen, I'm not going to go over it again, in the Quran, we got this book denies the deity of Christ, the crucifixion of Christ, Muhammad is a great deceiver, beat your women, do what I said, go look in Surah 2:23, look, men, how you can approach your woman, and etc., etc. You're going to see some other things later. But, you know, before we do that, we're going to look at another clip of John Carter, because he does it again in another video. It's called, Are Allah and Yahweh the Same Deity? I'm unsure of the exact date, whether it's between 2010 and 2016 for this clip. When I got it off the Carter website, I did see a date appear on the website that said April 26, 2020. I'm not sure if that's the date of the video or that's the date the video may have been uploaded. I'm just going to leave it open that the video itself could be between 2010 and 2020. Don't know. This clip's 1 minute and 37 seconds long. It's a question that Carter does very famously on his webpage in the Carter Report, where he takes questions from readers. Let's watch that video clip now.
Here is a question from Peter to the Carter Report website. Here it is. I ask a question. Allah and Yahweh have different characters. Why have some Christians stated that Allah and Yahweh are the same deity? Allah didn't send his son to die for humanity on a cross. It is true, Peter, that in the Muslim religion, Allah did not send his son to die for the world on the cross. They do not believe in the blood atonement of our Lord Jesus Christ. But I want to say this to you. Allah is the name of God in the Arabic Bible. He is the self-existing creator God, the God of the universe. We should never, ever, ever, as Christians, say a derogatory word against the Quran, their holy book. It's not our holy book, but we should respect it. And we should respect Allah, who indeed is the great God of the universe. We call him Yahweh or Jehovah, and they call him Allah. We need to show him respect. He is the God of love and mercy.
So we can see here what John Carter does, which is good. He agrees with the question that Allah does deny the atonement of Christ, but then he kind of slipped back into advocating for Islam, for lack of a better words, when he calls Allah the God of the universe. See, Carter is absolutely confused on who the God of Islam is. He so desperately wants to say we worship the same God, when clearly we don't. Let me just do this and make another example here. This is Allah's book, and Allah's book tells us about Muhammad. And in it, in Surah 33:21, and Muslims know this, it tells us we have a perfect pattern or example to follow in Muhammad. Let's look at Surah 33:21 in the Quran. It says, indeed, the messenger of Allah, you have a good example to follow from him, who hopes in the last day and remembers Allah much. To a Muslim, this is their divine sanction and rule that Muhammad is the example to follow. Let's go find out what Muhammad did and follow that example. That's what happens in the Islamic world. That's how you properly interpret this verse. So let's find out what Muhammad did. Muhammad did lots of things, and those things are largely recorded in the hadith sets. And by the way, what you can't see out of screen here is my Islamic library, which actually dwarfs my Adventist library. I have all authorized, I believe it's 6 sets now, of Sunni hadith, tafsir, I got the seerah. So if you want to start arguing and talking with me about Islam, bring your A game. Bring your hadith, your tafsir, and your seerah, and your Quran, and let me know which Quran you're using. I've got about 60 or so unique translations. And we can talk about that, Adventist, if you want to start defending Islam and Adventism. So bring your A game. I've got the hadiths. The hadiths largely record the doings and sayings and actions of others, and largely Muhammad. So remember, 33:21, we got a perfect pattern to follow in Muhammad. Let's see what Muhammad did. Here we have Sahih al-Bukhari, volume 5. We're going to look at hadith number 236. What did Muhammad do? He married Aisha. That's his favorite wife, by the way. When she was a girl of 6. Muhammad's 50 years old at this time, okay? He married Aisha when she was 6, consummated that marriage when she was 9. I got a 50-year-old prophet of the Book of Allah who marries a 6-year-old girl who was still playing with dolls and takes her to the marriage bed at 9. Yet this is the Quran that says we got a perfect pattern for you to follow. This is the Quran that Dwight Nelson and John Carter say is the God of Christianity. I don't know about you, but my prophet, Jesus, says anybody that harms one of these little children is going to be in serious trouble. The prophet of Islam consummates a marriage bed at 9 and marries them at 6. Just saying. Then he goes on to say that SDAs are never to say a derogatory word against the Quran. Well, you know what? You already saw what Martin Luther said in that book, what a wretched and cursed book that it is. I think Martin Luther missed that memo from John Carter. But you know what the SDA do? This is so funny. So here's John Carter pleading, don't say a derogatory word against Islam. But what does the SDA do? They will say a derogatory word against Christians all day long. After all, I'm going to get the mark of the beast because I am worshiping on Sunday. And I'm not observing the Sabbath. So I'm going to get the mark of the beast. By the way, if you're a Muslim, you don't get the mark of the beast because you don't worship on Sunday. You worship on Friday. So you're safe. You'll never get the mark of the beast in SDA. But SDAs will say derogatory things against Christians. Look with me here. Just one example of probably hundreds I could get. December 10th, 1903. Ellen White is still alive. Page 21. We're going to look at this bottom section. And what does it say down there? Just as long as apostasy is in this world, Sunday will be the mark or sign of apostasy. Well, you know, that's speaking pretty negatively against Sunday keepers, right? And that's what that's what Seventh-day Adventists are excellent at doing. So, don't speak about Islam, but, you know, we can call Christians. By the way, even SDAs call me an evangelical Christian, a member of a cult. Interesting. Seventh-day Adventists, when I'm on YouTube, will just literally flail their hands in the air or run around with their hair on fire if anybody calls SDA a cult. But yet the SDA, they call all kinds of people cults and groups. And evangelical Christians are just one of them. Go ahead, challenge me on that, SDA, and then you can look at the quote and deal with it. So then he says, Allah, well, he cracks me up because he's A-L-L-A-R. He can't say Allah. He says, Allah is the great God of the universe. And we got to show him respect because he's the God of love and mercy. I went, Allah is the God of love and mercy? I'm going to show you the love and mercy of Allah. Look with me here. We're going to look at a really famous surah in the Quran, Surah 929, which says this. This is a direction to Muslims. Fight against those who believe not in Allah. But that's pretty clear. You don't believe in Allah, fight them. And we know who Allah is. You can't say Trinity. You got to deny the deity of Christ, etc. And he says, look at the next set of underlined words. And those, we're going to fight those who acknowledge not the religion of truth. In other words, you don't acknowledge Islam, we are fighting you. And among the people of the scripture, and that's Jews and Christians, we're going to fight you until you pay the jizya. Carter doesn't know what the jizya is. I know what the jizya is. This book here, like I mentioned earlier, Islam and Dehemitude. Fantastic book. Her name is Bat Yor. That's really not her real name, by the way. She's an Egyptian woman. I've met her. She signed this book to me. I met her personally. Jizya. So, worship Islam or pay the jizya with willing submission. I'm going to give you some stories that come out of this book. She documents the payment of the jizya, the payment of non-Muslims to Muslims, and they would do things like this. They would first of all make you come and make your payment. You can't walk. You would have to grovel on your knees. Do not lift up your head and make eye contact with the Muslim. And in the Middle East, most men had beards. The Muslim would come to that Jew or Christian and pull on their beards harshly, hit them very hard on the back of the head and very hard, and make them feel in submission when they pay the jizya. You just don't waltz up there and open up your leather purse and drop a few coins in. The jizya was a hugely burdensome wealth tax that they would have to pay for the protection. That's what Muslims call it, the protection of Islam. So when you hear people like Carter talking about Muslim protected Christians for years, you think about the jizya, because that's what was going on. Carter doesn't even know what I'm talking about right now. He doesn't even understand anything about the Arabic, the history, etc. So, with that, we are going to look at Hadith. Hadith, Sahih al-Bukhari, Volume 4, Hadith 196. What does Allah's apostle say? Allah's apostle says, I've been ordered to fight with the people till they say none has the right to be worshipped but Allah. So there you go. You have to worship the God of the Quran. You're not going to go to a church and worship a triune God. You better worship the God of the Quran, because they're going to make you pay the jizya, which most people can't pay anyway because it's so high. So either you convert or you die. You convert or you're going to get into a fight with Islam. And you're going to have to fight for your life. And you're dead. That's it. Then he goes and talk about an account of an SDA pastor in some unknown Islamic country where his house was attacked because he was a Christian. Oh gee, we just read that, didn't we? In both the Quran and the Hadith. Fight them until they submit. It's in the holy books.
I was over in a Muslim country a number of years ago, and I better not tell you what country it was. And this pastor who belonged to that country, he was a native of that country, his house was blown up by terrorists because he was a Christian. That was dreadful. His wife was actually killed. He was terribly hurt. And when he woke up in the hospital, there was a man standing by his bed. That man was the king of that Muslim country. He said, I've come in the name of Allah to say how sorry I am. I'm so sorry that you were attacked because you were a Christian. And that king paid for that man's full recovery. He rebuilt his house. He could not restore that man's wife because that man's wife had been killed by the terrorist. But he did everything he could to make restoration. And he was a Muslim. And he was a man full of love and full of compassion. I just want to say today, Muslims should stop attacking Christians, and Christians ought to stop attacking Muslims. And I'm talking about verbally. We ought to realize that we are the children of the one great God who loves us.
And then he goes on to laud this king of this nation who comes in and, makes a financial restitution to this guy. I encounter Muslims like this sometimes too. These are two kinds of Muslims. It's either a Muslim who is actually not even following his own religion, which says, fight the unbelievers until they submit. That's true Islam. If you encounter a Muslim who is not doing that, you are encountering a Muslim who is not following his faithful religion. Thank goodness many of them don't do that. Don't follow their religion, that is. Because if they were, that's what they'd be doing. And the Muslims that attacked this Christian pastor's house that he talks about, that's what they were doing. They're faithfully following the Quran. this king is not faithfully following the Quran, or he's engaged in something else, which Carter, I'm sure, is absolutely clueless about. It's called taqiyya. That's the Arabic word, taqiyya. Taqiyya is deception. And when you are presenting yourself or Islam to others, in Islam it is permitted to lie, to deceive. So this king is either doing one of two things. He's either engaging in taqiyya, deception, to this pastor to try to win over the image of Islam, or he is actually truly, he's not engaging in taqiyya, he's just ignorant of his own followings. He's not really following the writings of the Quran and the Hadith. But Carter doesn't know that. Then Carter says what? That we Christians, we need to stop attacking each other. Christians and Muslims stop attacking each other verbally. He implies that we all worship the same God. He is absolutely wrong. We, as Christians, and I do it all the time, I've been to mosque, I've handed out tracts, I've been to mosque on Fridays, greeting Muslims when they come out of their prayer. And there might be 5, 6, or 8 of us and 300 Muslims coming out after prayer, and we're out there handing out tracts. And by the way, yeah, when I do that, I'm carrying my Qurans and my Hadiths and my tafsirs with me, because I dialogue with the Muslims, because I tell them they have a false book, a false prophet, and a false religion. At least one of us here, Dwight Nelson and John Carter, at least one of us here has the courage to say that and to recognize that. All right. I really wonder how these SDA pastors got away with this and are getting away with this. Hello, calling Ted Wilson, where are you? You got SDA pastors on official SDA channels saying the Allah of Islam is the God of Christianity. Where are you? What are you doing? Either you agree with this, or you are just missing and failing in your job of correcting the faith. Ted Wilson, first elected GC president 2010, re-elected in 2015. Going to have another election in his term ends in 2022, going to have another election. He's either going to what? Quit, get fired, resign, retire, whatever. So he may make it again if he decides to run and if they decide to elect him. I'm thinking, where is leadership reining in its heretical pastors out there? Could it be that they've never actually met each other? The answer is no. Let's look here. Here's Dwight Nelson at the podium. And who's sitting on the podium with him? None other than Ted Wilson. And this is in 2010. Obviously, Ted knows Dwight. How about the next one here? Look with me here. John Carter. Here he is at what looks to be a very private dinner engagement. There's Ted and John sitting within arm's reach of each other in November of 2017 as John Carter is making one of his returns from Russia. Look with me here on screen. What do I have? I got Ted Wilson. I'm not aware of any rebuke or discipline of these guys. If you are, do let me know. I'd like to know that. Because absent that, this is my comment. I have from Ted Wilson a tacit acceptance of these teachings. That his silence is telling me his affirmation of it. Dwight Nelson, Allah is the God of Abraham. John Carter, Allah is the God of the universe. This is absolutely absurd. So with that in mind, I gave everybody here new names. Dwight Nelson, he's no longer Dwight Nelson. He's Hamid Nelson. Hamid. The meaning is one who praises Allah. Loving God. He's a praiser of Allah. Mullah Wilson. Mullah, Imam, we could also say, is a leader. Is a name for that. It's a leader, Lord. And Bashir Carter. Bashir he's the shining, bright, illuminating light of Islam. So I just gave these guys new names. Hamid, Bashir, and Mullah Wilson, because they seem to have such an affinity for the false god that is in Islam. But you know what? Unfortunately, with Seventh-day Adventists, it doesn't stop, nor did it actually even start here. Look with me here on screen. Focus Magazine, Andrews University, summer issue of 2009. Here's a screenshot of the actual magazine, and in the lower right hand corner we're going to zoom in on this part of the page. What do we have here? Look at it says here, bottom left, students participated in worship at an Islamic mosque in Ashura. Oh my gosh. Look at these Seventh-day Adventist students worshiping the God of Allah, the God who denies the Trinity, denies the deity of Christ, denies the crucifixion, tells you to beat your women, tells you how to sexually approach your woman in Surah 2:223, and I could go on and on and on. Kill the Christian, kill the Jew, Surah 9:29. Make them submit until they pay the jizya. Remember what I said about the jizya? And here is your Islamic University students bowing to that God. So with that, you can see at the bottom of the screen I put a verse from the Quran in this, and it says what? Your real friends are no less than Allah, His messengers, and the fellowship of believers, those who establish regular prayers and regular charity, and they bow down humbly in worship to Allah. These students are bowing down to the false God of Allah, and this is utterly shameful. 3 Bible verses. Let me share the first one with you. 2 Timothy 4:3-4. For the time is coming. The time is here, actually, when people will not endure sound doctrine, having itching ears or accumulate to themselves teachers who suit their own passions, and will turn away from listening to the truth and wander off into myths. This whole video and the teachings of these celebrity Adventists is indeed documented evidence of wandering off into myths. Next slide. 1 John 2:22. Who is the liar but he who denies that Jesus is the Christ? That's Islam. You've already seen in the Quran where they deny Jesus is the Christ. And what do we have here? We got Hamid Nelson and Bashir Carter, who do what? Who try to support the deniers of Jesus Christ. They are going against this very scripture you see on screen in front of you. Lastly here, Ephesians 5:11. Take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. Islam needs to be exposed. Unfortunately, we have celebrity teachers who want to prop them up and try to make claims, which Islam doesn't even make the claim that it's Christian. Actually, you saw in the Quran, it denies it. But we got these teachers here, and I don't like using the word teachers. We have these false teachers in Seventh-day Adventism that want to prop up Islam, try to make it the same, when it clearly isn't.